Ms. Only, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Well, it's now 6 o'clock, and since our previous chair is no longer with us as the senior member on this committee, I will call the meeting to order for the Administration and Finance Committee for February 23rd, 2021. If you would please call the roll.
Maloney,
Here.
McBride, Joe Walker,
Here.
Overture Walker, Mackey.
Well, there were some people at the other meeting. Maybe they're coming over.
Yeah, Miss McBride is trying to join right now. I think she's on now.
Yeah, I see her name. It was there.
She's there. Miss McBride.
Yes, I was waiting to be connected.
Okay, I was making sure you were connected. We now have a quorum.
Okay, well, if we have a quorum, then first order after the roll call is approval of the minutes for the regular session, December 17th, 2020. I'll entertain a motion.
Move
So
to approve.
moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Miss Only, if you'll call the vote.
Maloney,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes,
Joe Walker,
Yes.
Overture Walker, Mackey. Motion passes.
Okay. Item number 3, approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Brown, anything to add?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Only, if you'll call the roll.
Maloney,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes,
Joe Walker,
Yes.
Overture Walker, Mackey. Motion passes.
All right, item number 4, the election of the chair. I will entertain nominations at this point.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I
Ms.
would like
McBride?
to nominate Bill Maloney as
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for Bill Malinowski. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to close nominations.
So moved.
second.
Got a motion and a second to close nominations. Ms. Only?
Maloney,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes,
Joe Walker,
Yes.
Overture Walker, Mackey. Motion passes.
Okay, Ms. Mackey, I see you've joined us. Thank you. That particular vote was to close nominations. What you missed, I'll quickly bring you up to date. Minutes were approved unanimously. The agenda was approved unanimously. For election of the chair, there was one nomination for Bill Malinowski, and the nominations are now closed. So we will now take a vote on the election of the chair for Bill Malinowski. Ms. Only, if you'll call for the vote, please.
Maloney,
Yes.
McBride,
yes,
Joe Walker,
Yes.
Overture Walker, Mackey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, Bill Malinowski has been elected as the chair.
Congratulations, Mr. Malinowski.
Thank you, Chairman Livingston. Just for the information of anyone listening, Mr. Overture Walker, Councilman Overture Walker, he did have a federal court matter today, and I know that's why he was not at some previous meetings, and that is probably also why he's not here tonight with us. Otherwise, he would have been. So for the record, that's where he is. Next items for action, number 5A, the Southeast Water and Sewer Project, Hopkins Magistrate Change Order. There's one, and it's for TCO Construction. That information is found on pages 11 through 19. Mr. Brown or Mr. Davis, would you like to add something to that, please?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Davis is on the line. I would just say to you, in your packet, you see the request of staff is to approve this change order. We believe that this change order, as approved, would allow us to connect the Hopkins Magistrate Office at a lower cost than we previously projected. And so if you have questions about that, we can have Mr. Davis speak to those specifics, but the staff will recommend approval, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Brown. Director Davis, anything to add at this point?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any discussion? I know I have several questions. I'll wait for my colleagues.
Mr. Chair, oh,
Yes, go ahead, Ms. McBride.
I think I read it because, in fact, we would be saving, I think that's it, $12,000. Would that saving go back to this particular program, or will we put it back in the funds for the magistrates programs that are underway now?
The savings, may I be recognized, John Thompson, Mr. Maloney?
Yes, Dr. Thompson, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Ms. McBride, the savings will go back into the construction of the magistrate facility and that budget line item only.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, now this change order, it has not been done yet. Is that correct, Dr. Thompson?
That is correct. Director Davis can correct me if I'm wrong, but that is correct.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. My questions center somewhat around that originally a septic and a drain field were approved here, and now we're being told that there's the poor soil condition is prohibiting water absorption through the drain field system. So was what's commonly referred to as a perk test previously done at this location? And what were those results? Director Davis, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I have some information. I spoke with some folks today about that. And this was a design build project where the intent was to put the on a plan view, you would see up in the north beyond the magistrate's office, there was where the perk was going to be done for the septic system. The perk failed, and the property was already purchased and ready to be built with the design build package. So they moved the septic system over to the east side of pretty much east of Lower Richland Boulevard on the backside of the magistrate's office. So when that was put in, it was going to cost an additional, I have some numbers. The original equipment and field was going to be about $15,000. And to move it, they not only had to move it, but they had to pretty much triple the size because the soil conditions were so bad. So it was going to be an additional $35,000. Whereas if the system was coming along about the time the magistrate system was coming on board, it was going to make more sense to connect to the sewer system since it's going to be there anyway, right in front of the property. So they went ahead and made a decision based on two things: being able to recapture that land, because it was a significant amount of property that was going to be taken up with this now triple sized septic system, and also saving $12,000 with the total change order for that project to come into the positive. So if that helps.
Well, that does help. I notice in our agenda briefing on page 12, it says that operational services and utility staff held several meetings to discuss changes to the septic system for the magistrate office to connect to this system. Once if it was that was approved, once the water project was approved and funded.
Yes, sir.
I kind of would have liked to have seen the dates for when those took place and what was discussed, because following that particular line, it says that the septic tank is still required to ensure the facility restrooms can operate during any forced main break. I'm not aware that any other businesses would require a septic if they're hooked to a public sewer. So it seems to me we're still incurring costs for some portion of a septic system, to include a grinder that's been put in here or is being asked to put in here.
Mr. Chairman, we have Director Pruitt on the line. If he can comment on your inquiry, please, sir.
Sure, go ahead.
Director Pruitt.
Yes, sir. This is Director Pruitt. May I be recognized?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Pruitt.
Good evening, everyone. Like Director Davis was saying, we were having difficulties getting the property to perk. And that we were going to experience the same situations that we have currently at the Lower Richland Fire Station, which is an occurring cost to the county having to get the septic system pumped. So the grounder pump has to be installed simply to get the waste material to the force main that's coming into place. The timing of the force main installation that's coming under this new sewer project and the timing of getting it back up and running with the septic system, it was all going to come together at the same time. So it made more sense in order to get it to be more efficient, effective, and operate at a long term. Now you ask about it's saying we need the septic in case we have a force main break. That is because it has to be pumped from the septic system to the force main. So we have to have that septic to be able to have a backup in case of a force main break. That makes sense?
Well, it doesn't really. Do we require everybody to have a septic in case we have a force main break?
Only if you have to grinder pump. You have to do a lift station.
If I could, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Director Davis.
a point of clarification. We don't need the septic system drain tiles. We have the septic box that's a little bigger, so it's about 1,000 gallons, so it can store some septic. So say if the system was down for some reason, it could be pumped and hauled just like it has been in the past when its drain fields are blocked. It just won't be any drain fields, if that makes sense. We still have the tank, just not the drain fields. So more appropriately, it would be that it includes a septic tank, not drain field.
Okay, thank you. That does clarify it some. Now, another question I have is the information in front of me of the contract change order, along with the change to the contract value. I see dates of April and May of 2020 on here. So why is this weighted until now, pushing close to a year, 10, 11 months later? It's just coming to us now.
I can speak to that, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
The discussions that Director Pruitt and was talking about earlier occurred in late 2019, and the projects were kind of paralleling each other. And once they determined they were going to end about close to the same time, the determination to go ahead and tag on board with us on the Southeast Sewer project was made. And these are shop drawings that came into play after. So the project bid, I believe it was late because of bonding and some other issues that had occurred in the Southeast system when we were delayed on the project significantly, and it didn't bid until around November. And so with that being said, back November 2019. So when this thing started getting constructed, the first step that you do is to approve the products. And these products were approved back in April for the project in general, not for the magistrate. These are very similar to what's being installed in all the individual homes that are being connected, that are along the pathway. So that's what you're seeing here is the product is not just for the magistrates, for everybody else too.
Okay, and I have one last question, Director Davis, on page 14 of our agenda, where it says change to contract value. It says original contract price, 5,800 plus. Current contract price after previous change orders. Apparently there were none because we're still at the same price of $5,800 plus. And then it says the contract price will be increased by $13,000. And the final figure says the new contract price will be $5,835. So how do you add 13,000 to 5,800 and still get 5,835? Anybody's welcome to answer that. Or is this an error in math?
That looks like an error, sir. Director Davis will make sure we get that
I
changed.
mean, I'm all fine if we can hold the company to that figure since they've signed it.
Yeah, I mean, it says the current contract price plus the change order is, I mean, unless I'm missing something, it's 5822 plus 13 is 5835.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. I missed that comma in there on mine the way it is. Okay, so you are correct. That is the right figure. Okay.
Okay, I was thinking, I was being really embarrassed because I was thinking, I'm not sure I understand.
I've got a misplaced comma in here. Okay,
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Thank
that's
you.
fine. Thank you. I
That
have
would be nice, wouldn't it?
I have no other questions. Do any of my colleagues have any additional questions? In the meantime, welcome Mr. Overture Walker to the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I don't have any questions. I've been listening intently.
Okay. Hearing no additional questions or comments, Miss Only, if you will call for the roll, please. The vote.
Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Joe Walker,
Yes.
Overture Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, the next item, 5B, sewer availability for Savannah Wood Phase 2 on pages 20 to 25. Administrator Brown?
Yes, sir. Again, we have Mr. Davis, Mr. Malinowski, but I would just remind the committee, if I could, that the idea of bringing this information before the committee was born out of conversations that council members were concerned about, being aware of new developments that were coming into the county and then not having some sort of visibility. So really what we're doing right now is using a process that normally comes through the utilities department to inform this body of those developments that are potentially coming online. We are not actually requesting this committee to approve new developments, but rather be aware that that's happening as a part of this process. So, Mr. Chair, with that being said, I certainly will open up the additional comments to Mr. Davis if appropriate.
Thank you, Administrator Brown, and Director Davis and I spoke about that yesterday, I believe it was, that I indicated that while staff says they recommend that county council approve the proposed development, the council cannot approve the development. That's another division in under your jurisdiction there. So what the council would be approving would just be the information being provided by Director Davis and Utilities that this is accurate information and the county's willing to provide the sewer, correct?
Correct, and we're going to change that wording in the future to be more clear. Yep, yes, that is correct.
All right. Any other comments or questions from my colleagues?
Just clarification, Mr. Chair.
Sure, McBride, go ahead.
Mr. Brown, so you have the authority to approve or disapprove, but I see that it's unlikely that one would disapprove.
Yes, ma'am. There's a process in which we can communicate and based on what our routine practice is, unless there was a specific reason, meaning that we did not have more than likely the capacity, would really be the only reason that we would not approve the willingness to serve letter.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd also like to add for the benefit of those listening and Ms. McBride after that question, there would be other reasons that we maybe would not want to approve, and there's a long list of them, for financial reasons, for the way that the county is growing, or you don't want it to grow. So there are several other reasons you may not approve a particular request for sewer in the future.
And you would have to document that, is that correct?
Well, the state law only says that, the state law says that you do not have to provide sewer or water to anybody that requests it. It's up to you, but I think it'd be a good idea to document why you're not providing.
But I think with the denial letter, you would have to document it.
I would say, Ms. McBride, we certainly have Mr. Davis who can speak to the requirements, but I would say to you that in our process, we would document it so that we will be clear as to why we denied that request.
Right.
If I could, just a point of clarification, Mr. Chair. We're, as a utility, we are obligated to determine whether or not we have capacity, as Mr. Brown said. But then secondly, we would be willing to serve them. That doesn't mean council is willing to serve them. So if we came before this body and said, we as a utility have the capacity and the willingness to serve this client, this is where we've come in and given you the opportunity to make those other concessions at that point. So.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Thank you for that, Director Davis. If there are no other comments, Ms. Only, if you'll take the vote, please.
We need a motion.
Oh, thank you. I thought we had one there. Okay, then I'll entertain a motion on 5B, sewer availability for Savannah Wood Phase 2.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve as recommended by the administrator.
I second it, even though I didn't think we had to approve it.
Now I have a motion and a second to approve the staff recommendation, the administrator recommendation. If there's no other discussion, Ms. Only?
Yes, sir. Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Joe Walker,
Yes.
Overture Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, the next one is a similar one, sewer availability request, and that is for Cabin Creek Place on pages 26 through 30 of our agenda. Director Davis, anything additional?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir. Mr.
would it be
Walker.
appropriate to have a motion and then go into discussion?
Sure, absolutely.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve as recommended by staff.
Okay, I've got a motion
A second.
and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Only, if you'll take the vote, please.
Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Joe Walker,
Yes.
Overture Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, the next one, we are on sewer availability 5D. And this one is for the Congaree project, pages 31 to 35. I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And a second. Is there any discussion? The only thing I would like to add, and I discussed this with Director Davis yesterday, is on page 30 of our agenda. I think we need to advise the recipients of the original letter. The last line says the availability is valid for 12 months, but the number 24 is in parentheses, and we don't want to have them have the opportunity to come back and try and do something we would not want them to do. So possibly a follow-up letter to them pointing out that that typo.
Will do, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Sure, Ms. English.
Yeah, the date prepared is a typo as well. It says December 28, 2021.
On my letter, it's got December 18th, 2020. Is this the one on page 30?
31.
31.
Page 31.
At the top.
I don't, oh, date prepared. That's this particular agenda briefing. I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we haven't gotten there yet, have we? So that's another scrivener's error. We'll just change that to 2020.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. English. Anything else? Hearing no additional conversation or comments, it's only if you will call the vote, please.
Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Joe Walker,
Yes.
Overture Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is 5E, the County Purchase Card Program, pages 36 to 86. Administrator Brown.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of council. We have several parties on this call, this Zoom meeting, who have participated in bringing this information to you. One of the things I would simply say, as you see in the document, staff does recommend centralizing purchase cards, and we have included documentation of what that means. specifically listed in your packet. One of the questions I will take a moment to answer is a question that came up during a conversation with council members about what do other counties similar to Richland County do in terms of P cards. On page 37 of the document, you will see that there was a survey that staff has listed and checking with those counties. So we have Charleston County, and the specific question was, do you allow council members to have purchasing cards? That was the question I believe that was addressed to staff. And so you can see there, Charleston County, Greenville County, Spartanburg County, York County, and Lexington County did not have purchase cards issued to those members of council. And at the time, I don't know if it's been updated, but we did not have any council members who actually had a purchase card. You see in Berkeley County, but it wasn't necessarily disallowed. So again, no person actually had a purchasing card. There was a council person. In our policy, we have included that in the packet as well, which talks about the new purchase card policy. We've also included in there the documents associated with that purchase card policy that communicates and gives more clarity and more tightened controls around how P cards are used when they're provided to individuals. And so what we're asking for on tonight is for a council to review and ultimately approve staff's recommendation concerning purchasing cards. The last thing I'll say, Mr. Chair, before we take any questions, is that when I began to talk with elected and appointed officials about purchasing cards, between the time I initially had conversations and where we are today, many of them just said, listen, I'm just going to have someone in my staff or staff members be assigned purchase cards, and I'll be the approver of any purchase that they have. And so we've gone from having a number of elected and appointed officials with purchasing cards to just a few at this point. So even if, well, my recommendation is for staff to take this, is to make this move, but I just wanted to point out to council, since this discussion has began, we have had internal movement where individuals have saw the value in just changing their process on their own.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion. Or?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve as recommended.
Yeah, I have
Second.
a motion and a second to approve as recommended by the staff. The only thing I have, I've got several comments / questions. I don't want to hold up the committee here. Administrator Brown, if I get with you prior to the council meeting, maybe we can just get those resolved, if that's fine with you.
Absolutely.
It's something that that needs to be brought to the attention of the council. We can do it at that point in time.
Okay, sir.
My committee members and other colleagues on this meeting have no objection, then, and there's no
Is
addition.
it open for discussion?
Yeah, hold on. I've got it here. I've got Ms. Barron and then Ms. Mackey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Brown, for bringing these recommendations and specifically to address how other counties are handling issues such as the P card. I did want to, in reading the document in draft form that you submitted to us, had a couple of questions. And then one, in the termination, when we're talking about the card termination, you list several items as to what deems termination for the use of the card. And I just would like to offer that perhaps we would want to, even though it's listed later, what's restricted for purchases. I think that if we're terminating and we're addressing terminating the card, that perhaps misuse of the card, it would be something that would terminate their rights to have this card as well.
Yes, ma'am. And certainly that makes sense. And if there's items in here that we didn't cover that clearly, certainly we can add that in more prominent areas.
Sure. And just like my colleague said, I did have a couple of questions, very general questions about the policy, but overall, the way it's written, I think that Mr. Brown, you and your staff have done a great job in compiling this document for us, but I will get with you offline just to clarify a couple of questions that I have. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I had Ms. Mackey next, followed by Ms. McBride.
Yes, thank you again, Administrator Brown, for preparing this. And I did want to follow up, Mr. Malinowski. I would love to hear some of your questions and receive those answers as well, just to make sure we're all fully informed before moving forward. And Administrator Brown, I don't know if you can quickly address this or not, and let me know if we need to talk offline as well. But when you talk about there being, a trained, assigned, purchasing card coordinator, are you developing, I guess, requirements so that that kind of looks the same in every department? Does that make sense, when you have someone at the same level actually having that title and it looks similar in each department versus a coordinator can be a different person? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
It does make sense. I believe I understand exactly what you're asking. For example, if I can just be brief, Mr. Malinowski, having someone in the department that's already in management versus another department, somebody's not in management, could that disparity be addressed? That may be possible in some instances, and others it may not be. I can think of, for example, if a department has maybe a small department is just a department head or elected official, and maybe they don't have another tier of management, that they may have an office person, supervisor, coordinator, who may not necessarily oversee other individuals, but who may just have office responsibilities. So it may be different than that, but I do understand what you're asking.
Thank you.
The training would be uniform, but I understand that the level of personnel in the departments, it would be helpful if we could possibly do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. McBride.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I did do a little review regarding the use of the purchase cards, and also the benefits of it. And based on best practices, it's one of the better means of reducing purchasing process time. And it's supposed to be an effective mean, the use of purchase cards or procurement cards. And those people that have cards are usually people that one can trust. And it's sort of confusing in the terms of that council members and elected officials are elected because the people trust them, and they are responsible for the management of millions and millions of dollars. Yet they can't be, it appears here that they can't be trusted with a small purchase card. The other thing is that, do the benefits outweigh the risks in terms of acquiring supplies or materials or whatever you use to purchase cards for? It's going to take a much longer time to process that. Secondly, I just think that when we are training, some of the things that are recommended now were never a part of the original purchase card or procurement card that was not provided to council members. I don't know about other elected officials. I assume the same thing. So the last thing I want to say is not that I'm going to vote against it, but I am very careful that when I'm looking at policies, I don't let a few bad media or a few bad things that were done by one or two people change a whole process or procedure that was good, meaning the benefits are outweighing the risk. And also, in coming up with this policy, overall, how many, was this a very prevalent problem? Was it, if you look at it over the last 5 years, can you document the misuse of it? It's just a lot of things that I think that in making policy, we need to take in consideration. Oftentimes, like the old saying go, you throw out the baby with the water. And when something is really good and a few people may misuse it. So, and the last comment I would make that I would like to ensure that when you are able to use these cards, they have to go through the process that's put in place. It seems like somewhat of a long process, and I know how long it takes to get anything done within the county. So I'm wondering, in terms of reimbursement for some people, how long if you need whatever you're purchasing, how long it's going to take. I think there's a lot to consider in terms of this policy, and the staff being able to turn around the processing and reimbursement parts. Not everybody, unfortunately, and I'm glad that we have a system in place where anybody, regardless to your income, can run for elected office. And oftentimes people run that they may not be able to pay out of pocket. And I saw some things that you had, but I don't think they adequately address those. So those are just some things I want to throw out in terms of any future policies that we're doing. We need to look at more than just 1 or 2 or 3 bad press releases on it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Chair, may I add just one?
Go ahead, Administrator Brown.
Ms. McBride, in addition to that information, we had certainly a third-party independent auditor look at some of our practices, and one of the things they listed, if you go back to the comprehensive annual financial report, is they listed our P cards, and particularly the need for additional controls around those. So that's also part of the reason why we're bringing this to your attention as potential reasons for change, because that's also been addressed by an auditing group looking at our information, saying here's a deficiency in which you need to put some additional parameters around.
And I do think that even if we would have kept, or if we keep the purchase cards, we lacked previously internal controls that should have been addressed.
Understood. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, through Councilwoman McBride.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead. I don't see any other hands up right now. I'll go ahead and toss some of mine out so that they are there. And that is on page 42 of our agenda. When you go down to the right above, second paragraph above card termination / closing, it says annual purchasing card training is mandatory by the cardholder as soon as possible after issuance. I would think that the training should take place prior to issuance so that somebody can't say, oh, I didn't know about that. I didn't get a chance to attend that training, so that's why I did it. I would think that we'd want them to have the training or hand them the book to sign saying they've read the rules and know what they are prior to getting the card. If it's something they need in that much of a hurry, there's certainly other people in the county that can issue them the payments they need or get the purchases done for them. That was one item. The other one on page 43, where it says card purchasing restrictions. It says the following list covers purchases for which purchasing card use is prohibited. I would think we'd want to add the following list, which is not all inclusive, covers purchases. And at the end of that lengthy list, after number 24 on the next page of alcohol or tobacco, we could put something in there that said, if there is a question as to whether or not a purchase is allowable, please contact someone in the finance department, administrative office, or somewhere, and make that determination before using the card. Again, we eliminate a potential loophole. On page 46, in the boldened portion, where it starts out, any transaction that is found to be unsubstantiated, unapproved, or for any purpose not related to county business may be required to be reimbursed by the employee. I would think if you've done something that's not allowable for county business, the word should be will be required to reimburse, to be reimbursed by the employee. Also, the next paragraph, the second line where it says cardholders should maintain a copy of all statements and documenting receipts. Again, the word should gives an individual a loophole. But what it doesn't add is should maintain a copy. I believe it should say will maintain a copy of all receipts, of all statements and documenting receipts, but for how long? For 5 years, for 10 years, for 1 year? I think we need to add a time frame in there that the cardholder will maintain these copies for a specific period of time. I go next to page 48, where it says any employee who makes unauthorized purchases or carelessly uses the purchasing card, again, the word may be liable for the total dollar amount. If you've made unauthorized purchases or were careless, that word should be changed to will be liable. Next would be, my comment would be on page 49. Cardholder responsibilities. It's the same, the first paragraph is the exact same paragraph as what's on page 47. So why not possibly put this, make your title on page 47 where it says card security, since this is an exact duplicate paragraph of that paragraph under card security, can't we put them together and say card security and cardholder responsibilities? Use that paragraph, add the rest of it under there, just to kind of get rid of some of the verbiage that we have here. I've got 2 more pages to comment on. Page 80 is my next one. Let me get to it. And on page 80, number 2, here's the cardholder agreement. Again, I'm going to try and tighten this up. It says, I understand no circumstances should I use the P card to make personal purchases, either for myself or for others. Willful intent to use the P card for personal use may result in disciplinary actions. It should say will result in disciplinary actions. And same with under number 6 on that at the very end, it says for personal use or gain that down there it says I will have to reimburse the county. So let's get consistent on page 46, 48, and paragraph 2 on this page and make them all will and eliminate the word may. And my last comment comes from page 85. And on page 85, at the very bottom, this is a question probably that can be answered later, but I guess it's a law, but where the last paragraph, daily meal allowance, it's $28 for in-state business travel. And then it says it's $35 for out-of-state business travels. Does it cost us more money to buy breakfast out-of-state versus in-state? It could, depending on where you're going, but it could also cost less. So I don't know why we have 2 different sets of numbers. A meal is a meal. And maybe that can be addressed later. But those are my comments, so that Ms. Mackey, you now have them, as does everyone else. And Administrator Brown, I won't need to get with you on them.
That's too bad. I was looking forward to it, Mr. Maloney.
But we can still discuss it.
Okay. Mr. Maloney, one thing we might need to follow up on is not all the items that you listed there, but a few where you said where the mays were put in there, where we're talking about employees who are under the jurisdiction of other officials. We are not at liberty to say what another official shall or shall not do with his or her staff. So I think in some respects, that's where the may comes in at when it comes to a person being disciplining of some specific discipline that we would mete out for another official's employees.
And maybe that could be added into the actual wording that, that if you are a Richland County employee under the administrator section, you will be required. Other elected officials will have to deal with it appropriately.
Okay.
I also have a question, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Sure, Ms. English. And then I also see Ms. McBride's hand is up again.
Is there like a first offense, second offense, third offense? No. I know I'm speaking that way because with the state, we have your first offense is written reprimand. Second offense is whatever. And third offense is like termination. I was just curious.
Administrator Brown, you can address that, but I think it's in the employee handbook, some of those violations, isn't it?
Right. We have a progressive discipline policy in the sense that we talk about taking progressive steps, but in terms of this specific policy, there's nothing in here that says, this counts as a first, second, or third offense. It's based on this policy is kind of by itself in terms of the county fiscal dollars. It's a standalone policy.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And I do recall seeing in there where it said that depending on the misuse, and it referred to the disciplinary policy. Ms. McBride?
Yeah, I was just going to comment on your questions regarding the meals, Mr. Malinowski.
Okay, go ahead.
In the state policies, that it depends on the size of the city that you're visiting. And in the federal guidelines, it's also based on that.
You're right, it is. And I just don't know if we do that or not. So, but that's
It is a significant difference.
yeah. Okay, are there any other discussions, conversations? And I guess, Mr. Brown, if you make any of these, and make changes, if you'd please make sure they're underlined, crossed out, highlighted, so when it gets to council, folks would know.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, we did have a motion was made by Joe Walker and seconded by Councilwoman McBride. Any additional?
No, I think Ms. Mackey seconded.
Or was it
Correct. It was Mackie.
Oh, okay. My fault. I thought it was McBride. Okay. So we've got a motion and a second. If there's no additional discussion, Miss Only, if you will call for the vote, please. And that is
Malinowski.
approval of the staff recommendation.
Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Joe Walker,
Yes.
Overture Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, the next item in front of us is 5F, as in Foxtrot, the Niche Road Sidewalk Award, pages 87 to 98. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
And a second. Who seconded that?
All right. Councilman Overture Walker.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this particular item? You'll notice under motion of origin, this went back to December of 2019. I'd like to know why it's taking this long to get back here.
Mr. Chair, this is Director Maloney.
Yes, sir.
I had come in about 1 year ago and we began talking about the, in early 2020, the road maintenance plan. We wanted to be sure all the projects we were doing were going to be in alignment with that plan. And these two projects, and a third design project coming up, were what I call stragglers that were kind of coming through the pipeline. They do, in fact, it's fine. We did have a little bit of a slowdown with COVID as well, but the public meeting, for instance, for Nice Road was in the fall. That allowed the consultant to complete the design and then put it out for bid. But, we had a little bit of maybe delay in the early part when I first started.
Okay, this takes me back to something we did on, I think it was a repaving area in District 2 here that we had discussion on last year, toward the end of last year. And it was, this is like another one coming up here where it says that the request came from concerned area citizens. And then when that took place, all of a sudden the CTC or C funds we're being told they've been approved for this project, yet nobody came to the full council or to the administrator and asked, is this something that you want to get done? Is there an order where maybe you want something else done first? And so it was mentioned that if we just keep doing things based on concerned citizens' request, we may never get to the actual work that the county feels could be more pressing. So has that been addressed yet? Has anybody talked to those people?
Yes, sir. We've talked to CTC. The only projects they were reviewing were outside the county and state hands, and we deferred that to the state. As far as projects that have come in this year for the county, we are making a recommendation. I believe it'll be in March at this meeting or at the ANF or at the DNS committee for a sidewalk project. As we said, one a year that will fit in our budget. So that's the first start of that new policy.
Okay, and that does go into what my next question was, and that is, I believe all council members should be provided, especially since we have so many new ones, should be provided that policy so everyone knows exactly what it takes to get a sidewalk approved. And I believe anything coming from the CTC, they should actually send the request to you at the county so it can be put into the works with all the other requests, not that they jump line by going directly to the funder for these things. But one other thing I wanted to know is on page 88, it says the apparent low bidder was found non-responsive. It doesn't tell us why they were found non-responsive nor what their bid was. Could we get that info, please?
Yes, sir. I believe Director Wladischkin's here for that.
Yes, sir, Mr. Malinowski. May I be recognized?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Ms. Wladischkin.
This is Jennifer Wladischkin, the procurement manager. The low bidder did not provide a bid bond, which is reason to find them non-responsive. That's not a minor informality, so we can't overlook that. And I believe if you look at the, let's see, page.
Is it in here?
Yes, if you look at page 95 and 96, it has both bidders listed.
Okay, I see it. Thank you. Is there any line item required of expenses? I mean, they give an estimated overall bid on page 91. But is there a line item that's required at this point in time when they come in with a bid?
Yes, sir. There is a breakdown in the actual bid documents by line item that's usually provided by the engineer, and it's inserted into the bid, and they enter their unit pricing, and it's extended, and we award based on the total bid amount.
Okay, so you do have that then.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And also the bid, from when I was looking through here and comparing these figures, the bid is actually over the amount that we're receiving from CTC. Am I correct in what I saw?
Yes, sir. We have Stephen Staley, the county engineer here, but he's filed paperwork for that has been put forth to CTC. Mr. Staley, if you have an update on that approval.
I contacted the CTC manager earlier this afternoon, and they're working on it. They don't see a problem with it. I just don't have the final paperwork yet.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Staley. I just was wondering what would happen to that, and it sounds like we'll get the full amount back. Thank you. Any other discussion? I don't see any hands up. If not, Ms. Only, we have a motion and a second. If you would call the vote, please.
Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride, Joe Walker,
Yes.
Yes, for
Walker, Overture Walker, Mackey.
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, the next item, we've got 6 minutes to get as far as we can here. Is item 5G, Wildwood Roads Repair Resurfacing Award, pages 99 to 105. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Only, if you will call the vote, please.
Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Joe Walker,
Yes.
Overture Walker, Mackey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next is item 5H, Spring Park Drive in Green Hill Parish Parkway Sidewalk Design Award, pages 106 to 109. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Again, this is a citizen request. Administrator Brown, but I guess this is CTC funds again.
It is, sir.
Okay. Okay, any conversation? Hearing none, Ms. Only, if you will take the vote.
Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Joe Walker,
Yes.
Overture Walker,
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next and last item on the agenda, 5I, Sonico Recycling Contract Extension. I'll entertain a motion at this point.
Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve. I heard Mr. Joe Walker first. Mr. Overture Walker, you second that?
Sure, second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Mr. Malinowski, I saved mine to full committee.
And that's what I'm going to do also. Thank you, Ms. McBride. Well, then one of us, I guess, can vote no to keep it off consent.
I'll vote no to keep it off.
Okay. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Only, if you'll call the vote, please.
Malinowski,
I'll say yes for now.
McBride,
No for discussion later.
Joe Walker,
Yes.
Overture Walker,
Yes.
Mackey. Motion passes.
Ms. Mackey, did you vote? You were muted. I think she's stuck there. Okay.
Yeah, I move to
Lost,
adjourn.
Mr. Chair, I just received the text message from her. She lost the internet.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Walker. I've got a motion to adjourn
Second.
and a second. Ms. Only.
Sir, Malinowski,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Joe Walker,
Yes.
Overture Walker,
Yes.
Mackey. Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone, for being here and giving us your input. And thank you for having confidence in me to run this committee for the next year. Appreciate it. See you.